The massive space station floated quietly in the darkness of space. Its name was Unity Nexus, and it was the most important place in the galaxy. Today, leaders from hundreds of different alien worlds were gathering here for a very special meeting. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the gleaming white corridors with her daughter Emma. The little girl held her mother's hand tightly, her eyes wide with wonder as she looked at all the strange creatures around them. Some aliens had 6 legs. Others floated in the air. A few were made of what looked like living crystal. "Mama, why does that one have so many eyes?" Emma whispered, pointing at a purple alien with eyes all around its head. "Hush, sweetheart," Sarah said gently. "It's not polite to point." Sarah felt nervous. She had been to many important meetings before but never one like this. Today they were meeting with the Draktheran Empire. The Draktheran were powerful, dangerous, and feared by everyone in the galaxy. This meeting could bring peace or it could start a terrible war. Sarah had not planned to bring Emma. Her daughter was supposed to stay on Earth with her grandmother. But at the last minute her grandmother got sick. There was no time to find anyone else. Sarah had no choice but to bring Emma along. As they entered the main council chamber, other aliens stared at them. A tall, blue-skinned diplomat approached Sarah quickly. "Ambassador Chin," the alien said, her voice full of worry. "Is that a human child? You brought a youngling here? Today?" "I had no other option," Sarah replied. "Don't worry. Emma will stay quiet and safe with me." The blue alien's face turned pale. "You don't understand. The Draktheran are bringing him." "Bringing who?" Sarah asked. "The Void WRM. Emperor Zarketha's personal guardian. The most deadly creature in the known galaxy." Sarah felt her blood turn cold. She had read about Void WRMs in the briefing files. They were massive dragon-like beasts from the Draktheran home world. They could breathe poison. Their claws could cut through starship metal. They had never been tamed by any species except the Draktheran, and even then only the strongest warriors could bond with them. Around the chamber, other delegates were talking in worried voices. Some were already leaving. "This is madness," a small furry alien squeaked. "Why would they bring such a monster to a peace meeting?" "It's a show of power," another alien answered. "The Draktheran want us to know they could destroy us if they choose." Sarah bent down and looked at Emma. "Sweetheart, I need you to promise me something. When the big delegates arrive, you must stay very close to me. Don't wander off. Don't touch anything. Can you promise?" Emma nodded seriously. "I promise, Mama." The lights in the chamber suddenly dimmed. A deep horn sounded. Everyone fell silent. The main doors opened slowly. First came the Draktheran soldiers, tall reptilian warriors in black armor. Then came Emperor Zarketh himself. He was enormous, with dark green scales and eyes that glowed like red fire. His presence filled the room with power and danger. But it was what came behind him that made everyone gasp. The Void WRM entered the chamber. It was bigger than Sarah had imagined, bigger than the largest elephant on Earth. Its scales were black like deep space, but covered with glowing scars that pulsed with blue and red light. Its eyes burned with an ancient intelligence. When it breathed, small wisps of green vapor came from its nostrils. Several aliens screamed and ran from the room. Others hid behind their chairs. The creature's name was Ashkareth, and just looking at it made Sarah's hands shake. This was a predator. This was death given form. She pulled Emma closer, holding her daughter tight. This meeting had just become far more dangerous than anyone had planned. The ceremony began with Emperor Zarketh standing at the center of the Great Hall. Ashkareth, the massive Void WRM, stood behind him like a living mountain of scales and muscle. The creature's glowing scars pulsed slowly, casting strange shadows on the walls. "We come in the name of the Draktheran Empire," the Emperor's voice boomed through the chamber. "We bring our greatest warrior as proof of our strength." As he spoke, Ashkareth lifted its enormous head. The movement was slow but powerful. The Void WRM opened its mouth slightly, showing rows of teeth as long as kitchen knives. A low rumble came from deep in its throat, like distant thunder. More aliens fled the room. Even the bravest delegates pressed themselves against the far walls. Some were shaking. Others couldn't look at the creature directly. Sarah held Emma's hand tighter. She could feel her daughter's small fingers in her grip. The ambassador tried to focus on the Emperor's words, but her eyes kept returning to the deadly beast. Ashkareth moved again. This time it walked forward a few steps. Each footstep made the floor vibrate. The creature's tail swept behind it, long and powerful enough to crush anyone in its path. The bioluminescent scars on its body shifted from blue to red, then to orange. Sarah had read that these colors showed the Void WRM's mood. Red meant aggression. Orange meant alertness. A small alien delegate suddenly fainted. The sound of his body hitting the floor made everyone jump. Ashkaratha's head snapped toward the noise, its burning eyes locking onto the movement. Several security guards reached for their weapons, but they didn't dare draw them. Everyone knew that any hostile action would trigger an attack. In all the chaos and fear, no one noticed Emma let go of her mother's hand. The little girl had been watching the Void WRM with different eyes than everyone else. While others saw a monster, Emma saw something else. She saw the way the colors moved across its scales like a rainbow. She saw how graceful it was despite its size. She thought the glowing patterns were the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Pretty lights, Emma whispered to herself. She took a small step forward. Then another. Her small shoes made no sound on the polished floor. Sarah was turned slightly away, listening to another diplomat who was begging her to leave the chamber. Nobody was watching the child. Emma walked past the legs of tall aliens. She slipped between chairs. She moved toward the center of the room where Ashkarath stood. By the time someone noticed, Emma was already 10 steps away from her mother. "The human child," someone shouted. Sarah spun around. Her face went white. "Emma." "No." But it was too late. Emma was walking straight toward the Void WM. The little girl had no fear in her eyes, only curiosity and wonder. Every person in the room froze. Time seemed to stop. Security guards stood like statues, afraid to move. Emperor Zarketha's eyes went wide with shock. Even his own warriors didn't know what to do. Ashkarath turned its massive head toward Emma. The creature lowered its snout, bringing its face closer to the tiny human approaching it. The Void WRM's eyes, which had been burning bright red, began to change color. They became orange then yellow. Emma stopped right in front of the beast. She was so small that she barely reached its chest. The Void WRM could swallow her whole without effort. One bite from those terrible jaws would be the end. The creature's breath washed over Emma like a warm wind. The green vapor from its nostrils swirled around her. Any adult would have been terrified. Poison from a Void WRM could kill in seconds. But Emma just giggled. "Your breath is warm," she said in her small, happy voice. "Like the heater at home." She looked up into those ancient, burning eyes and smiled the innocent smile that only a child can give. Ashkarath stared down at her. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Sarah wanted to run forward and grab her daughter, but her feet wouldn't move. Every instinct told her that any sudden movement would be the end. Around the chamber, dozens of aliens watched in frozen horror. Some covered their eyes, unable to watch what they thought would happen next. Ashkarath lowered its head even more. The Void WRM's face was now level with Emma's. Its eyes, each one bigger than the child's head, studied her carefully. The creature's breath continued to flow over Emma, making her dark hair flutter around her face. Emma tilted her head to one side, the way children do when they're thinking about something. She reached out one small hand, so tiny compared to the beast before her. Her fingers touched the scales on Ashkaratha's snout. "You have bumpy skin," Emma said softly. "Like the lizard I saw at the zoo." The Void WRM didn't move. It barely seemed to breathe. The glowing scars across its body pulsed slower now, shifting through colors that no one had seen before. The red and orange faded away completely. A soft blue began to spread across the patterns on its scales. Emperor Zarketh leaned forward in shock. That color. He had bonded with Void WRMs his entire life. He had fought beside them in 100 battles. Never, not once, had he seen that particular shade of blue. His own warriors whispered to each other in their language, confused and amazed. Emma smiled wider. She patted Ashkaratha's nose gently, like she was petting a puppy. "You're not scary at all," she said, her voice full of kindness. "You're just big. Really, really big. Like the dragon in my storybook at home." Then Emma did something that no one expected. Something that would be talked about across the galaxy for generations. She stood on her tiptoes. She leaned forward. And she kissed the Void WRM's nose. Her small lips pressed against the dark scales for just a moment. It was the gentlest, sweetest gesture. The kind of innocent affection that only a child could give. The entire chamber gasped. Several aliens made sounds of disbelief in their own languages. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Emma stepped back and looked up at Ashkarath with bright, happy eyes. "You're not mean," she whispered, but in the dead silence of the room, everyone heard her words. "You're just lonely. I can tell. You need a friend." Something impossible happened then. Ashkaratha's eyes changed completely. The burning intensity faded. They became soft, almost gentle. The bioluminescent scars across the creature's entire body turned that same soft, pulsing blue. It was beautiful, like watching stars being born. A sound came from deep within the void WRM's chest. It was low and rumbling, but it wasn't a growl. It wasn't a threat. It sounded almost like purring. Like a giant cat that had finally found warmth and comfort. The creature moved its massive head forward very slowly, very carefully. It pressed its snout gently against Emma's small body, as soft as a feather. The deadly predator, the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy, was nuzzling the little girl with impossible tenderness. Emma laughed and wrapped her small arms around as much of Ashkaratha's snout as she could reach. "Good dragon," she said. "You're a good dragon." Emperor Zarketh stood from his throne. His mouth was open in shock. His translator device was making strange sounds, as if it couldn't process the emotions he was feeling. Around him, his elite warriors stood frozen, their weapons forgotten. The Emperor had trained for 30 years before bonding with his first Void WRM. He had faced trials of fire and blood. He had proven his strength in combat again and again. His warriors underwent brutal tests to earn the respect of these creatures. And this human child had done the impossible with nothing but a smile and a kiss. Emperor Zarketh finally found his voice. He stepped down from his throne, his heavy footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. Every eye turned to him as he approached the small human child who was still hugging his deadly companion. "Explain this," the Emperor demanded, looking at Ambassador Chin. His voice was not angry but filled with confusion and wonder. "Explain what I have just witnessed." Sarah took a deep breath and walked forward slowly. Her legs were still shaking, but she was the human ambassador. She had to answer. "Your Majesty," she began carefully, "what you saw is something very human. We call it innocence. Children like my daughter don't see the world the way adults do. They don't see danger or threats. They see possibilities. They see friends where others see enemies." The Emperor looked down at Emma, who was now showing Ashkarath her small backpack. She pulled out a stuffed toy dragon, worn and loved, with button eyes. "Look," Emma said to the Void W. "This is Mr. Scales. He's a dragon too, but much smaller than you. Do you want to see him?" Ashkarath lowered its enormous head close to the tiny toy. The creature that could destroy battleships was studying a child's stuffed animal with deep interest. Its tail swayed gently behind it, no longer threatening. A small alien with large, intelligent eyes stepped forward. She wore the robes of a galactic psychologist, someone who studied how different species thought and felt. "Ambassador Chin," the psychologist said, her voice shaking with excitement, "I have studied hundreds of species across the galaxy. But I have never seen anything like this. Your species has something unique. You call it empathy, yes?" Sarah nodded. "Yes. The ability to understand and share feelings with others. Even with those who are different from us. But it's more than that," another alien scientist added, floating closer. The child showed no fear. None at all. She approached the Void WRM with complete trust. "How is this possible?" Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "Humans have always been strange that way. We make friends with wolves and turn them into dogs. We rescue wild animals and care for them. We see something scared or hurt or lonely, and our first instinct is to help, not to run away. Even our children do this naturally." Emperor Zarketh watched as Emma continued to play near Ashkarath. The Void WRM had settled down on the floor, making itself smaller, less threatening. It followed the little girl's movements with its eyes, protective and gentle. "I have trained for decades to bond with such a creature," the Emperor said quietly. "My warriors face death in the bonding trials. Some do not survive. We prove our strength through combat and blood. And yet this small human..." He paused, struggling to find words. "She achieved in moments what takes our greatest warriors years to accomplish." A murmur went through the chamber. Aliens who had been hiding began to emerge. They watched in amazement as Emma patted Ashkaratha's scales and talked to the creature about her favorite stories. "Perhaps," an elderly alien delegate said softly, "we have misunderstood humanity. We thought they were dangerous because of their weapons and their wars. But maybe the real power of humans is something else entirely." "What power is that?" another asked. "The power to turn enemies into allies. The power to see good in all beings. The power of connection." Ashkarath made that strange purring sound again. Emma had climbed up to sit between the creature's front legs, completely safe and happy. The Void WRM curved its body around her protectively, like a mother guarding its young. Emperor Zarketh looked at Ambassador Chen with new eyes. We came here today prepared for difficult negotiations. We brought Ashkareth to show our strength to make you fear us. And? Sarah asked. And instead, a human child has taught us something we never expected to learn. The Emperor's voice was filled with respect. Your daughter has shown us that true strength is not in causing fear. It is in creating trust. The peace negotiations that followed were unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever seen. Emperor Zarketh, who had arrived ready to make demands and show power, sat at the table with a completely different attitude. We came here believing we were the strongest species in the galaxy, the Emperor said to the assembled delegates. We believed our warriors and our void WRMS made us superior. But today I have learned something new. He gestured toward Emma, who was sitting on the floor near Ashkareth. The little girl was drawing pictures with crayons she had brought in her backpack. The massive void WRM lay curled around her, watching her work with gentle eyes. Any species that can produce such beings deserves our greatest respect, the Emperor continued. The humans do not conquer through fear. They conquer through friendship. This is a power we Draktherin have never understood until now. The other alien delegates began to nod. They had all witnessed the impossible. They had seen the deadliest creature in the galaxy become gentle because of one small child's kindness. We propose an alliance, Emperor Zarketh announced. Not just a treaty of peace but a true partnership between our species. If humans can teach us even a fraction of their ability to connect, to trust, to see beyond fear, then we have much to learn from each other. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. She had come to this station hoping for a simple peace agreement. Instead, humanity was being offered something far greater. The vote was unanimous. Every species in the chamber agreed to the alliance. Several other alien civilizations even asked if they could join as well. They all wanted to understand the humans better. As the formal documents were being prepared, Emperor Zarketh approached Emma. The little girl looked up from her drawing, which showed a child holding hands with a dragon. Young human, the Emperor said, bending down to her level, you have done something today that will be remembered for thousands of years. I wish to grant you a title. Emma blinked her big eyes at him. A title? Like a princess. The Emperor smiled, something his species rarely did. Better. I name you WRM Friend. This is a title that has never been given to anyone outside my species. It means that any void WRM in the Empire will recognize you as a trusted companion. You will always be safe among us. Emma thought about this seriously. Then she smiled. Does that mean Ashkareth is my friend now? If he chooses to be, yes. Ashkareth rumbled softly and nudged Emma with its snout, so gently that it barely moved her. The meaning was clear. The bond was real. The days that followed were filled with celebration. News of what happened spread across the entire galaxy. The story was told on 1,000 worlds in 100 languages. The day a human child tamed the untamable became legend. Scientists began studying human psychology and emotion. Diplomats requested human advisors. Teachers wanted to understand how humans raised their children to be so fearless and kind. The galaxy was changing and humanity was at the center of it. When it was finally time to leave, Emma stood in front of Ashkareth one last time. The void WRM looked sad, its colors shifting to a dim blue. Don't be sad, Emma said, hugging its snout. I'll come visit you. Mama promised. We're friends now and friends don't forget each other. Ashkareth made a soft sound like a whimper. Even Emperor Zarketh looked moved. As Sarah and Emma walked back to their ship, the little girl tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mama, why was everyone so scared at first? Ashkareth just needed someone to be nice to him. He was lonely. Sarah looked down at her daughter and felt her heart swell with pride. Emma didn't understand what she had done. She didn't know she had changed history. To her, she had simply made a friend. You're right, sweetheart, Sarah said softly. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is just be kind. As their ship left the station, Sarah looked out at the stars. Humanity had just shown the galaxy something important. They had weapons and technology, yes. But their real strength was something simpler and more powerful. The strength to see friends instead of enemies. The strength to offer love instead of fear. The strength of a little girl who kissed a dragon.